first talk today is from Jiquan Niam, and Jiquan, the floor is yours.
Awesome, thanks, Shannon. Cool.
You're welcome.
Can you pull up my screen there? Let's see. Awesome, great. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what we do at MintMCP and really how we're seeing people adopt MCP in action around observability, governance, deployment. But before we start on that, I thought I will start with a quick demo here on just to ground things. Why do we even care about this? And I wanted to show you a quick demo on what can MCP do for any one of us in ChatGPT. And so a quick demo here where I set up ChatGPT with MCPs with Notion, Calendar, and LinkedIn. And this is actually in ChatGPT through a custom GPT with actions into those connectors. So once that's set up in there, you can start to do really powerful things even in ChatGPT or other AI agents you have. I can say, hey, what's on my calendar today, right? And what the ChatGPT now, if it's connected to all these applications, what it can do now is to start really interacting with any data source we care about. They want to bring it into this ecosystem. And as we spend more and more time in ChatGPT, being able to bring all that data into a central place to work with just gives us a lot of power, right? So for example, I've added this context event to my calendar. You can see that it's there. I can start to ask it to do more now, right? Hey, can you tell me the list of people attending? And if you see Shannon, can you look up Shannon's background and information? And then help me create a Notion page for this to prepare me for the meeting. Right. So over here, what I've done is I've asked this single custom GPT I built to connect it to a bunch of MCP tools, including my calendar, including ways to get LinkedIn information, web research information, but also to Notion. But critically, rather than just having it read Notion, I also connected it to Notion to be able to write data to Notion. Right, so create pages, create notes, and be able to, really help me get more things done quickly, create first drafts of things. And I think the power of MCP really comes in here where you're able to really bring whatever data you want into the ecosystem, be it, data from your data warehouse, data from your emails, data from your CRMs, and data from all of these different places. And the cool thing about this is that, ChatGPT now has MCP support. This is true custom actions in custom GPTs. But they all work really well together, and are able to get more things done. So this is going. Hoping the demo gods are good to me here. I just talked to the MintMCP connector, which I'll talk about in a minute. Got some data and now created a Notion page for me with that data. And this is running live. This is a page it just created, in this demo itself. Great. And so now you can start imagining, you're going to sales meetings, doing calls. You can start to use this sign-on systems to really get more done. So with that in mind as a stage, the kind of question that we always had is, this is an amazing experience, but it turns out that it's actually, really transformative to the way we work, but very not easy to set up yet for most users. There are many challenges in getting this to work really well when you actually want MCPs to be deployed in practice to many users, your organizations, and the people on your team. So despite the transformation, there's still a little friction on getting it out there. And so here are the things that we are seeing as we work with customers, if we see people adopt MCPs. The challenges that, what comes to bear, we try to push this and, hey, everyone, try to use ChatGPT with these things. The first thing is that MCPs can be actually quite a bit confusing for users. Which servers can I trust? There are many versions of servers out there in GitHub, in the wild remote MCPs. Sometimes users come across a stdio server. If you're technical, that's cool, you can figure it out. But if you're not, it may be hard to figure out how to even run it because you need to install packages or do something locally on your machine. And then for some MCP servers out there, they're really complete, like the GitHub one. It comes with 90 different tools, but you may only care about a few select number of tools in that big server. So not only is this confusing for users, it turns out that as we start to think about organizations adopting MCPs, the other problems that we start to run into is thinking about the challenges around, security, key access. Are we giving everyone the same bearer token to get access to our data? That's kind of risky. We don't want to do that. We may not have observability into what MCPs users are installing. There's some servers could be insecure, some are great. And without IT and security having visibility into that, that's going to be challenging to manage. And then finally, for various compliance reasons, you may need to log and understand what data is coming in and out of your systems. And MCP servers by default don't really give you that telemetry or audit logs that help you understand what data is leaving your organization or coming in there. Finally, as a developer, when you develop servers on MCPs, doing things like OAuth can be kind of annoying. Figuring out SSO connections to Okta can also be something that you may not want to deal with. So it's challenging to get authentication in there, which leads to often API key-based methods being deployed. And then there are also other scenarios in here that are challenging too. Tool names from remote servers might conflict with what you do, or maybe connections to other services like ChatGPT may not be as seamless as this is. ChatGPT has MCP support, but there are really rough edges when you try to work with it as well. So what we do at Mint is essentially a solution that tries to help address these problems in here to give you, your users, your IT, and also your developers just a better experience overall by making it possible to gateway the services, right? And so you might have seen different gateway services out there from MCPs. And for us, the crux of it here is really to help you enable three things, and with a very unique vServer concept in the middle. So in a gateway that we are building here, what we're going to have is that we're going to have the ability to allow developers, to quickly deploy servers. If you made an stdio server, you should be able to quickly say, hey, run this in the gateway, and the gateway runs it for you. You should be able to connect to multiple servers and be able to combine and, pick out which tools you care about, and then be able to sub-select only the ones you want to use and expose that to the end users in your organization. And by having this middle layer here, we start to see IT be able to do things like enforce security, SSO, logging, and really understand what's going in and out of the systems and be able to get telemetry into that. And then finally, your end users, which I think are the most important ones. Rather than having them install 10 different servers, wouldn't it be ideal if every user there could just have one server that they install and it comes pre-packaged with all the different MCP tools that they care about? Right, so if you start filling in the little boxes in here, this starts to look a little bit like this, where you have different virtual servers. We call it vMCPs for virtual MCPs that are role-based or department-based. They're connected to multiple MCPs behind the scenes with either custom stdio or maybe calendar MCPs from the public. And then you're able to connect these things into your favorite chat systems, internal AI systems, and things that your team is working with. So I'm going to do a quick walkthrough of this and then show you how we actually got the calendar prep ChatGPT setup going, and how some of these things, some of the problems that we're running into in terms of deployment, security, access control can be addressed to a gateway-like solution there. So I'm going to hop to Mint here and just do a quick demo of what Mint is. So this is the MintMCP application. And so, right off at that, you can see that Mint has a little bit of a registry where we have recommended MCP servers for you to use. Things like Gmail, Calendar, Asana, Outlook, Cloudflare, and all. You can also see, I have a bunch of connectors already connected into my Mint ecosystem in here. I have a LinkedIn server that gets me LinkedIn data. I have a Notion MCP, GitHub, Slack, Supabase, and some of these things are stdio servers running in our cloud. So connecting a server into Mint, it's as simple as adding a connector and giving it a MCP server URL, and either saying it's a per user credential or a shared service credential that everyone in the organization shares. If you have hosted servers, you can also just paste in JSON configurations that you're familiar with if you use Cloud Desktop or Cursor. So I'm going to show a quick demo here where I'm just going to go ahead and connect, say, maybe my Gmail into this particular ecosystem. The nice thing about some of these connectors right now is that the remote connectors have OAuth flows, which makes it really just a one-click button to get some of these new MCP tools into your AI agent. So this is a Gmail server from MintMCP that we built. Very nice, straightforward connection. Just have this URL, connect to it. And it then immediately gives you all these tools to now start working with emails, right? I can draft email, draft replies, search emails, and get draft. So after you've connected one of these services here, what you really want to do is to be able to manage credentials for your organization, right? So do each user have their own credentials and they need to log in? Or do you want to share credentials across all users, right? So if you're connecting, say, a data warehouse Snowflake account, you're probably more in the shared credentials regime. If not, you're going to be in more per user credential regime. Now, I think the next concept in here is like the critical one that I think is really important for the MCP world. And we're calling it the virtual MCP concept. And in virtual MCPs, what we're doing here is that we're going to take multiple MCPs and combine them into one MCP. So I had an MCP server here already, the 𝗪𝗵𝘁'𝘀'𝗹𝗹 MCP server. I'm going to add Gmail to the server now. And what this does, which is really cool, I think, is that it takes this few MCP servers in green and puts all their tools into one big set of tools. So over here, I can see Gmail next to Google Calendar, next to a LinkedIn server, next to a Notion server. And you're now able to say all of these tools is one set of tools that I want to give a specific user to use. As an administrator of the platform, you can enable and disable tools. You can also overwrite tool names, and you can set like overwrite tool descriptions, right? So this is potentially really important, especially if you have multiple MCP servers you're using right now, and maybe the names conflict, or maybe the descriptions and how you want the tools to be used need to be tuned a little bit for your specific use case. Even more important than that is that sometimes tools come with huge descriptions. Like, for example, the Notion description for creating pages is really big. And you may want to inspect it, or maybe there's a server you're using that you're not fully trusting it yet. You want to understand what exactly is going into the prompts when you use this MCP server. Cool. So with that, two policies, then you next get into what we call security policies. And I think over here, the critical part from a security point of view is that servers can update their tools at any point of time. And if you're unaware of what's going on, a server could introduce a new tool that you may not want your team or yourself to be using. It could be a risky tool like a delete tool or modify tool. And you can always disable this option in here where a virtual server gateway can now require the administrator yourself to really determine what's available to the users and your AI clients. Similarly, you can set access policies on who can access the servers. And then finally, with all of that, you get what I call the one MCP to rule them all. This one MCP link is now a link, MCP URL you can now provide to your users. And they can just log in and be able to access that. So for example, if I were to grab this link and hit the Claude and be able to put it into Claude and my connectors here, what this does is that we'll be asking users to connect to this MCP server through an OAuth connector, potentially SSO login if it's set up, and then be able to give now Claude access to all those tools. Now, even if those tools didn't have OAuth set up, you now have an OAuth endpoint for your servers because it's going through the gateway. Right? So if I click configure now, you can actually see that this demo tool server is a really powerful server. It has Gmail, Calendar, LinkedIn, and Notion all in one. Right? And this also makes it actually surprisingly easier to manage, because if you're in Claude right now or your AI of your choice, rather than going in there and turning off tools one by one here, what you could do is that you can turn off the entire set of tools, right? So depending on what you're working on, you're working on DevOps stuff, you're working on engineering, maybe you're writing a PRD, the set of tools you want are different, and it's much easier to be able to have this semantic layer of tools to be able to turn them on and off as and when you need it. Cool. And as a bonus in there, we also support ChatGPT. So if you actually use ChatGPT and are using it with custom GPTs and actions, those can be really hard to set up. And we give you the full instructions on how to set up the custom GPT with actions in ChatGPT as well. Yeah. So this is the gateway there. But I think the other part that's really interesting about the gateway, we mentioned a little bit about X-ray or agent, be able to see what's going on, is that once all of these things are now going through a gateway, you can now be able to have logs and dashboards and metrics on the MCP activities in your team. So over here, I have an MCP activity panel where I can see all the MCP calls made by my team in this demo account. when they were called, how many calls were made, what was being called, and all the connector activity there. If I go to the activity log, I can also now dig in and see exactly what's happening. So while in ChatGPT, when I was doing this activity here and going through it and saying, give me the list of people attending, look them up and their backgrounds, sometimes the AI systems don't give you all the telemetry you want to understand what's going on. And it can be hard to debug or figure out how to fix this. Now, depends on the AI system, some of them do, some of them don't. But with a gateway and an activity dashboard here, you start to be able to really get that insight into what's happening. So I can click in here. For example, I can click on this one, which is calling a LinkedIn Find Person Profile API MCP tool. I can see that it's searching for a company name, and I can see the exact results it returns. And I get a bit of sense and like, is this data going right, wrong? And I can see telemetry into all of this. And this is actually really important. If when you need audit logs, you need to debug what's going on, or you really want to understand, are MCPs actually effective in my organization? I'm rolling it out, who's using it, who's using what? And I think that degree of visibility is important as well. Cool. So that's the whole MCP gateway in a nutshell. Wondering, Shannon and all, do I have more time to go? Because I can also show the second observability piece on Claude Code if we have more time for that.
I think, yeah, if you've got another sort of 2 to 3 minutes, go for it.
Oh, sure. Sounds great. Okay. If you're cool with that, I'm going to switch my screen and show a full screen instead. So I might need your help to bring that up. Give me 1 second. Perfect. Thank you. So the other thing that I was going to talk about today is that most of the MCP adoption today, it turns out, actually starts with coding agents, right? So we use Claude Code a lot, and it's going off doing things for us. And so one of the things that we have also built is a observability tool into coding agents, where we give a proxy service with a base URL to Claude, and you're able to one-click copy this and really run Claude in a very different setting, right? So usually when you run Claude and it's clodding away, coding for you, again, you don't get much telemetry and logs into what it's doing. But by using a bit of the gateway solutions we have here, you start to get a lot of telemetry into Claude. So for example, I'm running Claude now with this Anthropic base URL from our proxy service. And so now it's going through our proxy to Claude and back again. And the experience for a user has no difference. But it turns out that we are going to get a lot more data. So for example, one thing that we noticed in Claude is that it's very happy to read secret files. So we see this a lot in Claude, where Claude's reading .m files, .m.local, .m.development. Sometimes it's doing it not even with me telling it straight up to do it. It's just doing it to check, and because I have a bug, it's trying to figure out if my bug is due to API keys not set up. Right. So over here, I have a demo set up here where I ask it to read my M files, and it's very happy to do that. At the same time, people are installing all kinds of MCPs into Claude, so you don't really know what's going on. So again, similar to the MCP gateway, when you have a live gateway to see what's going on through Claude, you can also start to get telemetry into Claude itself. So over here, when I did those commands, I start to be able to see, for example, not Claude just doing that, but from an administrative point of view, the ability to see, hey, Claude is reading files, is reading M files here, right? And so you kind of see, like, in an organization, if we're deploying coding agents, now we can get insights into what those coding agents are doing. We can start to see the entire prompts that's happening, what tools they are calling, what data is flowing. And if they call MCP tools like this one, we can also start to see MCP tool calls in that telemetry, in the observability there, where we are essentially like X-raying the coding agent to see what it's doing. Now, what's really cool about this is that once you figure out what you want and not want to do, governance becomes a big thing that we need to care about. And so now we can set rules in here. For example, I can say, if you ever use the read tool and you use file path and you're seeing a .env file, so just a regular expression, I can tell Claude to say, I can create a rule like this. And now whenever Claude responds, we can do real-time responses, real-time rule modification of the responses based on this data. So if I were to flip back to Claude now and say, and ask Claude to read it again, what you'll see now is that without any change to the user experience, Claude now tells me it can't read that file, right? And so understanding, what your users are doing, what Claude is doing, what MCP tools are calling, and then being able to take that X-ray understanding and transform them into safe rules, I think is going to be a really important part of how we think about MCP adoption as well. And being able to, both govern and observe, right? So over here, we can see now in the proxy service live, Claude has tried to do this, and now it's actually modifying the response back to the user, right? So in a nutshell, that's the 3 things in there. So, hoping that using MCPs can actually be, one, clear for the users. Here's an MCP your team should use, comes pre-connected with tools, compliant for IT, single control plane with also telemetry, but also easy for developers. Upload your MCP servers, and you get all of the support very quickly, and your company can use it without all the concerns that come with MCP security. Yeah. That's all I have. Thank you. Thanks, Shannon, and thanks, Greg, for having me here.
Yeah, Jiquan, thank you so much for giving an excellent demo and diving into a lot of great use cases. I'm super interested in just understanding the background of the company. So where are you guys at in your life cycle? Are you, first of all, is MintMCP available for everyone to go and try?
A great question there. So MintMCP is available as a product that's live and running with customers right now. We do a bit of a high-touch onboarding right now to really make sure you succeed. So reach out to us, we'll get you into a call and get you access to the platform.
So it's kind of in a private beta would be sort of a good way to describe that.
I would say there isn't a free trial yet, coming soon, but I think it's more of like we would like to do an onboarding call with users so you can make sure that they really understand what's going on and get started there. Yep.
And how long has it been in production use for people? You said you have people using it.
Yeah, so I think it's been so again, and everything the MCP space is new, right? This whole thing probably didn't exist like 3-4 months ago. So we've been working on this, for a few months now, and what you're seeing here is like accumulation of work for a few months, about 2 months now, and people have been using this for, I'll say, quite a few weeks now in their systems, rolling that out, the proxies, the services, the gateway, all of that. We see people liking this a lot, especially with data warehouses, being able to get in there, ChatGPT, figure out what's going on and ask questions, being able to get the observability into the coding stuff too.
And everything in here is hosted, right? This is a SaaS service. So I come in, you host everything. You're hosting my MCPs. You're running the back end. I'm logging in and using this as SaaS, right? It's not software that I run myself. It's SaaS that I access over the web.
Great question in there. Yes, this is right now SaaS. So we help you manage all of that. Lots of updates and security updates that we do there. We do have self-hosted options as well. And that's something that we normally sit down with customer and figure out which parts of this do they really care about self-hosting as well. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Craig, do you have any questions for Jiquan?
Yeah, just maybe some like more technical questions around the LLM proxy. That was pretty interesting. Do you see sort of like, do you have other things you can do beyond just simple response injection or response modification? Like, can you hook that up to an LLM that will like kind of like do interpret what is being asked and do a little bit something more fuzzy there?
Oh, definitely. I think we've been thinking a lot about this where once you have that kind of service in between, you're able to see 2 calls, 2 responses, and also user messages, right? All of those things, right? So you kind of see like a 2 response. Does it contain any sensitive information? Did we do the PII masking correctly? A user message, are they typing in something there that we do not want them to typing? And then some of these, I think you could sending them to LLM to process. Mm-hmm. Some of them, I think, hopefully it's a quick regex or a quick, deterministic logic, so it's faster. We're very concerned about latency there because if someone's using this in a, real-time coding environment and whatnot, you don't want them to wait for the responses to be streamed back. So I think there's going to be this dual nature where some things will be real-time, like regex type things, and maybe some things can be a little bit delayed where it's more flagged by the system. After a minute, a bit bigger LLM runs through it there too, and those are all things that we have been thinking about.
Makes sense.
Awesome. Jiquan, thank you so much for coming on. It was awesome having you here today, and I really appreciate the demo. It was great.
Thank you.